REsimpli is the best CRM product I've ever used in my life. And Sharad
Thank
and
you.
his team, their ability to ship new updates immediately is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I just
Thank you,
wanted to
man.
give Sharad and REsimpli their flowers. I love the system. We weren't using it before the challenge. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on other CRMs, and this one is leaps and bounds better.
Hey guys, my name is Sharad. I'm the owner and founder of REsimpli, also an active investor in Northwest Indiana, right outside of Chicago. I do fix and flip. We're actually going to be assigning our first contract in like 2 years. We just bought it for 10,000 and we found an investor. It was a really shitty property and we're assigning it for $12,000. We did everything, found a buyer. So yeah, we're like, yeah, $2,000. Nice little chunk of change. But yeah, we do mostly fix and flip. I own rental properties and also property management company. So if you ever want to talk about that, more than happy to get into that. Thank you for joining our weekly mastermind call. We have a very special guest, Stratton Brown, on this call. He's built multiple seven-figure companies and he's doing an amazing live challenge, going live daily multiple times a week, talking about how he is scaling, starting from zero to $1 million in revenue or net profit in 6 months. Is that
Net,
right,
it'll be
Stratton?
0 to 1 million net in 6 months.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you guys are not following him, highly recommend you follow him. It's sharing pretty much everything that he's doing in the business. So with that, Stratton, thank you for jumping on the call, man. How are you doing?
Of course, I'm doing great. Thank you so
Yeah, if
much
you
for
just
having me
want to
on.
yeah, absolutely, man. Our pleasure. If you just want to give a little bit background about yourself, you've done tons of things, Division 1 athlete and all the cool things. So if you just want to kind of give us a little background, then we can jump into the call.
First, I'd like to say REsimpli is the best CRM product I've ever used in my life. And Sharad
Thank
and
you.
his team, their ability to ship new updates immediately is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I just
Thank you,
wanted to
man.
give Sharad and REsimpli their flowers. I love the system. We weren't using it before the challenge. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on other CRMs, and this one is leaps and bounds better.
Thank you, man. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
Of
I
course.
appreciate that.
My name's Stratton Brown. I grew up in a small town in Utah. Coming out of high school, I had full ride scholarships in 3 different sports. I ended up playing football. I went to football, Fresno State, played football there. From there, I was all conference, 17th in the country in tackles my senior year. And then I thought I was going to make a bunch of money in the NFL. I made absolutely zero. But with me making a bunch of money in the NFL, I learned that I needed to invest my money. So I started reading a bunch of books and everything else. And then from there, I worked for another investor. When I got done trying out for the Seahawks, I started like a home inspection company. That didn't do anything. I did a crawl space. It was fucking disgusting. And so from there, I called up another investor who I know. I ended up working for him for about a year and a half. And then I broke off on my own. We started wholesaling a couple deals a month out in Fresno, California. And then from there, we ended up starting a company called Call Magicians that we've pivoted to a company now that's called Virtual Help. And then over the last couple years, we had another company that we took to 7 figures that helped people get a government tax credit. And we've done all with virtual assistants. No in America employees. We'll probably do some American employees for our 0 to 1 million challenge, just because I need someone who has experience closing deals
Yeah.
fast, because we want to honor the challenge. And I don't have time to train up someone to get up to speed, because whenever we are hiring on our sales reps, it's going to take them 3 to 6 months if they don't have experience to get really good at being able to close deals consistently. And I don't necessarily have that. We're about a month and a half in the challenge. We're looking at about 220 something in booked revenue so far, but we got to get all that booked revenue to the finish line.
That's amazing, man. Just to even think about going from 0 to 1 million in net profit in 6 months. It's bonkers. Yeah.
It's,
Just
it's it's
even,
been really hard, I'm not gonna lie. We've had
yeah.
all sorts of, I mean, just because we're doing nationwide PPC with Lead Zolo,
Right.
right? And so we're getting leads. We locked up a house for 33,000 that's worth 300,000 in West Virginia.
What?
But we have to novate it because it's in West Virginia, and within a mile radius, several other houses have sold for 300 grand. But you have to wait forever for someone to come in because we're in a really, really tertiary market, right?
I
And so
see.
we got like one like that. We have one in Chicago we're buying it for 30. We'll probably sell it at 130 to 100. We had another one coming in Chicago that we were buying for 100. They had no, there's REsimpli right there. Let me pause that. We had one coming in Chicago to where we had a $200,000 appraisal from the seller. They wanted to sell it to us for 100,000, and we thought it was worth 300,000. But now they're trying to back out of our contract, right? And that's a lot of money for us to
Yeah.
just like essentially not have come in. And so it's
Yeah.
been interesting to learn all the ins and outs as far as dispoing nationwide as compared to knowing everybody who I need to dispo to.
Yeah. So Zach asked, what is the challenge? So Zach, Stratton doing a challenge of how to go from zero revenue to $1 million in revenue, like from scratch. So you should definitely follow him on Instagram. He's going live on Facebook and just tons and sharing tons and tons of information. So you definitely check him out. So Stratton, like I'm really curious. So my company, I live in California, San Diego area. My project manager, who manages all our flips, lives an hour north of me in Corona, and my VA lives in Philippines, and we're flipping houses in Indiana. So I totally like we're leveraging, virtual assistants, like doing everything remote. Like, how have you been able to do that? Like, what are some of the things that you notice when people are scaling their business or when people are using a virtual assistant? Like, what are some of the things where they like mess up? What are some of the best practices when it comes to that?
They have no accountability set up for that person. They have no roles and responsibilities set up for that person. They have no actual training set up for that person. And then they have no tracking of what that person's doing every day.
So what are
Right.
some of the KPIs or tracking that you hold people accountable for, let's say on the acquisition side? Like that's like one area where a lot of investors use VA based in Philippines primarily. Like what are some of the like KPIs that you want to see people hold accountable, their VAs accountable for?
And everybody in here is in REsimpli, right?
Most of them. It's open for everyone, but I would say majority of the people
Okay.
are REsimpli users. Yeah.
I want to know how many total calls they're making, how many offers we made, how many contracts came in, and then what
Right.
our total talk time was for the day.
So you're tracking their activity, like the input that they're putting in, day out.
Because
And if
if
they're
we
doing
can
the right
have,
things, yeah.
right, if we can like track their activity over time, then if we're like, okay, then we can look at all these numbers and we can know where we need to improve this person. Because if we have had like, hey, this person's at 200 calls a day, they're getting out 5 offers a day, we're sending out 3 contracts, but only one is coming back in. Immediately, that tells me this person's struggling closing at the very, very finish line. And so we need to go and we need to look into that and fix that person on wherever that ball's getting dropped right there.
Like the first thing would be to track how much input they're putting in. If they're putting in input, it's like putting in different context. If I want to lose weight, I'm going to the gym every day, eating healthy, but I'm not losing weight. Then the question is, okay, what the heck am I doing at the gym? Am I just going to the gym and watching, Sports Center there and not doing anything? That's kind of when you start looking at what are the next things that they're doing. Are they making the calls, but they're asking the wrong questions? Kind of, do you listen into their calls to see if they're asking the right questions? How are they handling the objections that the seller is raising?
So what we do, and so full transparency on the challenge, another issue I had was that we had 2 sales reps that we brought on. They were both virtual, but they weren't virtual assistants. One of them couldn't make it. The other one we had to let go of. But every morning we do a morning huddle and a sales training. Every morning,
Right.
like first thing of the day. We want to get them in. We want to do a huddle, share their wins, share their KPIs. They need to report those KPIs themselves, not the system, because I don't want them to tell me that the system's wrong. I want them just to tell me what their numbers were, because they can always use the system saying, oh, no, that's wrong. I did this. So we just make them track it personally. And then if the system says one thing, they say another thing, then we can see there. But never let the system just say this is what it is. All right. But then we have our morning huddle. We share what is something you're grateful for, something good that happened to you. Our morning huddle is a must if you are going to have a virtual team member, because you want to build the culture and keep everybody raw. Because you guys all know we deal with a very eclectic clientele when we're on the phones with these sellers, and it can be very emotionally draining. So we got to keep energy high. So we'll have a call at 8 a.m. and then we have another call at 1 p.m. and then we'll have a check-in at the end of the day.
Are
The
you
end of
doing
the day
3 calls?
check-ins only like 5 minutes.
So doing 3 calls with your team, like initially just setting up, hey, this is what we need to do.
At least.
Midday would be, all right, are we any questions, any issues? And I love that. We just do every morning, like a quick 10-minute huddle. We just go through kind of what we have in the pipeline, the contracts and stuff. But I like doing it midday and end of the day also, just to make sure that day was completed and give them a little bit more accountability then, that it's not just until next day.
Yeah, because like if we just go in the morning and then they're just kind of off doing their own thing during the day, they won't feel like they're a part of anything and they won't feel like they're a part of a team. And you're
Right.
going to have high attrition, or you're
Yeah.
just not going to have very good company culture and you're not going to be able to attract the best people. Because I don't want someone who just wants to show up at work every day. I want someone who's passionate, someone who's excited. The only way we really get that out of people is by creating a good environment. And that's how we have to control that environment. Because if you think about when we're in an office, that person's with us all the time. They can feel our energy. They can see what we're doing all day. They can see the amount of work we put in. If it's virtual and we only have like one touch point, they don't see anything. They don't
Yeah.
get the culture. They don't get any of that.
How do you build culture? Like that's one thing I know other investors have struggled with. And this is something that I've struggled with also. It's building culture when you have some team members in US, some in Philippines, I mean, you speak the same language, but just the culture is different, right? Like how do you build that unified culture across people? I mean, this, whether you have a team member based in Philippines, Costa Rica, or wherever, it's still you're working with people, they want to be appreciated, they want to be happy. How do you do that?
I think the huddles are huge. And so everybody shares the same core values. I know my friend Tommy Har went over and he went over to the Philippines to meet his people. If it's just you and everyone else is virtual and they're in certain places, at a point in time with Call Magicians, we had about 150 virtual employees. We would just pay for everyone to go have a party, right? And so that
Hmm.
would build that company culture. So if you have a team in the Philippines and they're all semi in the same area, whoever that team leader is, be like, hey, here's $500. You guys just go blow it all out and have an amazing time. Make sure you FaceTime me. I'd love to see
Right.
what you guys are doing. And
Yeah.
then let them all go have a good time and have them take a bunch of pictures and everything else. And $500 is probably overkill for the Philippines, depending on the amount of people. But
Right.
we did it for Mexico, we did it for Egypt, we did it for the Philippines. We'd let whoever that group leader was in that country get everyone together. We'd let them plan everything and everything else, and then just let everybody go get pictures. And that could build the culture in the community of that company. And
Yeah.
then we'd still do like for virtual stuff on Halloween, we always do like a costume contest on Zoom,
Oh, yeah, I love
and
that.
everybody would vote on who had the best costume. Obviously, all costumes have to be appropriate. And yes, you have to disclose that. You would think that people would know, but they do not know. Like the same way you have to disclose everything else. In person, you have to disclose virtually. What's another thing that we do? We do a lot of birthday presents. So
Okay.
when someone gets a birthday present, when someone's birthday comes up, we send them a birthday present from Amazon. And one of the team members at a point in time, when Call Magicians was really big, we had our HR head and she knew everyone's birthday. So everyone, we'd get a company-wide Slack shout out. I would call them personally and we would send them a birthday present. We would find out like what was like something small that they cared about and we'd ship it to them.
And I can tell you this is like extremely powerful. We do that with all team members. We have team members in like 4 different countries. So when they join, we ask them for their birthday and we send them a birthday cake. And one team member Philippines, I remember, she started crying. She's like, I've been, VA for 4 years. No one has ever done that. It
Yeah,
was just like so powerful to do that. I mean, it's like $10 for the cake,
exactly.
but just the impact that has, the productivity and just all the intangible benefits, it's just through the roof. Like she literally started crying. It's like no one has ever done that. I've been working with investors for 4 years. No one has ever like asked me for my birthday and he was just let alone like send me something. So extremely powerful. Yeah. So I love that you guys are doing that. And you guys are going above and beyond. Like we just send them cake and like swag item, but you guys are asking, hey, what is it something that's important to you? And then you're making it like personalized to them.
And so just like a book called Giftology, I think all of us should read because
Yeah.
it's really, really good when it comes to working with our sellers and everything else.
Yeah.
But for an example, one of our dudes down in Mexico at the very beginning, I don't know why this one sticks out to me. He was a huge LA Dodgers fan. So we got him a bunch of LA gear for his birthday.
That's amazing.
Right. It was
Such a
like
simple thing.
just
Yeah.
like a simple, but it's personalized.
Yeah.
He knows that we care about what he cares about,
Yeah.
and then we send it to him. So just the little stuff where it's a tweak to where they don't feel like they're another cog in the machine. Because
Yeah.
most people, if they are a VA, are working for larger companies and they feel like another cog in the machine. If they feel like they actually mean something, and then that the work that they do is contributing to the larger overall mission, you're going to be able to retain much better talent because they think their work is worth something.
And they're going to be so motivated coming to work. They're going to get you that one extra deal. They're just going to be like, we noticed that with our team, like with my acquisition person in Philippines, like he found this deal, he negotiated. Like I said, hey, I don't like this is only $2,000, but if you want to wholesale, find a buyer. Like he went, skip trace everything, found a buyer, was going to make 2,000. Like, all right, I'll give you like 20% off the deal because I would have passed on it, but he's making $400. He's super happy about it. He's managing everything. I'm not even talking to the buyer. I haven't talked to the seller, but he feels appreciated that it's not, hey, you're going to make $5, $6 an hour. But if you go above and beyond, you're helping me make money, definitely get a cut off that profit that we're making. So he's super happy about that. I want to ask you one thing. This is something that we've struggled with. We've gotten better at it, but it's still a little bit of struggle. What are some of the best practices when you're hiring people overseas? Whether it's in Philippines, Mexico, you can have them do this test or like PA index and all that good stuff. But how do you make sure you find the right people? It's not, especially people in Philippines, they're working like graveyard shift. It's not the ideal, but they make good money compared to what they would make. But it's still a little bit of a challenge finding motivated people. Like, how have you been able to solve that problem?
I have to fire a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'd say I fire pretty fast. And
Yeah.
at this point, we've interviewed and hired thousands of people, I can say, over the last like 3, 4 years. And the people who have been like superstars, if you think about it, at any point in time, I only will ever have like 9 or 10 direct reports. And if you become a direct report of mine, that means you are insanely talented in our eyes because you can work with us and you're not doing just a regular day-to-day task. So like think about those numbers there. Like you're gonna have to go through quite a bit of people. The things I care about is like the way they think about problems. If I can find someone who I can be like, hey, here is the issue we're having. I need you to go solve this. How would you go solve this? Or another good question, ask someone, at your previous job, what is a project you spearheaded? What were the problems you encountered during that? How did you solve those? And then what did you learn during that? So it lets
Yeah.
me know that person can take an initiative, they can encounter problems, then they can go solve those problems. They can identify which ones were the hardest ones and then what they learned from that.
What
And
are some
that's
of the like
Go
questions
ahead.
you would ask them like to test them? I mean, they can make up some stuff for the previous, employment, and it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to verify. But what would you ask them like right now? Like what kind of problem would you give them just to see how they would go about solving it?
What would be ones for my sales reps? I just ask about their sales experience. What would be a good problem I could ask? Because I haven't even gone that deep. I just want to hear. I take everybody at face value, and if they lie to me, they lie to me. But a good problem, I would say, what is your biggest problem you are running into currently? So I'd say,
Okay.
hey, with REsimpli, right now our numbers are getting spammed out because we're putting so many phone calls through, and we aren't getting a hold of as many people as possible. What do you think we should do to solve this?
I love that. Yeah.
Right, to where if you can give them one of your certain business problems that
Yeah.
are going on, depending on like the hiring process, because the number one bottleneck as soon as we start doing any type of volume is you and your ability to solve all the problems.
Yeah.
If other people can't come in and like step up and just handle them, then you're going to be at your computer for 3 hours every morning, kind of putting out fires to where the other people can learn how to be firefighters too. That's how you can get exponential growth.
Yeah, it could
Because
be. I mean, they don't have to give you the exact answer. It's just like the thought process that they have
yeah,
behind it. I love that. Yeah. I love that question. Yeah. Now do you have when you're hiring someone, do you have them go through any like desk analysis or, culture index or not really?
I like
Um,
PI. I like PI. Ray Dalio has one too that's free. That's a little
okay.
bit easier. But at the same time, again, I thought I was going to be the super smart dude. I was going to find the best personality trait for the best cold caller in the world. And we surveyed all of our cold callers and the best ones, and there was absolutely zero correlation between personality types and someone who would perform as a cold caller.
Really interesting.
And that was with the
Wow.
predictive index. And we spent $20,000 with predictive index that year.
So really no correlation between like, hey, this I don't even know what they have, like Maverick or
Yeah,
like,
like a
yeah.
maverick or a captain or
Yeah.
something else. And we are like, all right, who's our best performing people on each team? We'd put them all through the PI. We had everybody's PIs, and there was absolutely
That
zero
is
trend.
so interesting.
It's
That is
people
so,
who it's people who fucking have to get after it, in my opinion.
yeah.
Like people who can learn, like I think if anything, it's a cognitive test rather than like
Right.
a PI test.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
there wasn't personality stuff.
All right. There's a question from Hector. What's a good average talk time and amount of calls for a cold caller and maybe then a lead manager closer? Like, what do you look for? Like average talk time and how many calls are they making per day?
Cold callers, it's hard to track talk time, but you'd want like 300 to 500 dispositions a day and like
Okay.
1 to 2 leads a day,
Okay.
depending
Okay.
on how you qualify a lead. Some people just want someone who raises their hand. I think that really clogs up your CRM.
Yeah.
I'd tell your cold caller to qualify him a little bit more. And so yesterday, I know one of my own personal callers, if I check my Slack.
Yeah. That's the one thing that's very subjective on like what I may call a qualified lead. You may be like, hey, this is not qualified at all because you haven't asked these questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had, so on the 18th, 42 wrong numbers, 35 hangups, 395 not answers, 37 not interested, 722 voicemails. So
Oh,
he was plowing through stuff,
right.
right? But then, and he didn't get a lead that day. And then the next day, he got a lead off of 630 voicemails, 4 solds, 1 yes, once offer, 312 no answers, 19 hangups, and 40 wrong numbers. So with the voicemails, generally we need to turn the system off to not identify the voicemail because that's just lag time. Yeah, you can spam your number, but the amount of time it takes to just hit the button, if you just turn that off, you would be much better.
And what are you using to, I think Jason asked, what system are you using to make cold calls?
We've used everything. I'm looking into your dialer right now. We were on batch. I just canceled batch. We were on call tools. I canceled call tools. Cold calling's gotten really, really hard. If you want to do it and have it work correctly, you need to have at least 100 phone numbers per cold caller
Yeah.
if you want it to not spam out.
Yeah. And then this is something the carriers are starting to look at now. I know the A2P 10 DLC is like SMS related, but that doesn't mean like carriers are not looking at the call stats. If you're making like hundreds and hundreds of calls, but no one is picking up, that just immediately indicates to the carrier that, hey, this may be a spam number. So something to be careful about where you want to look at your pickup rate. How long are you on the phone with? Yeah. So Shelby said, I've used Batch, Mojo, and REsimpli. REsimpli works just as well as the others and makes it easier if you're on the platform. Yeah. Shelby,
Don't
thank
use
you. Yeah. Ours
Mojo.
is a single line dialer. Like that's the only thing that I hear is people want triple line dialer. In my opinion, single line dialer hands down is better. You call less people, but your connection is higher. It prevents your number from getting marked as spam. That's just my opinion. We are going to be rolling out triple line dialer, but then there's just people need to keep in mind that it comes with a lot of cons with it. You're calling triple line dialer, someone picks up, there's like a 2-second delay, which you can't do anything about. It's always going to be there, just how triple line dialer works or multi-line dialer works. People hang up, it immediately starts getting a number flagged. So something to keep in mind with that.
If you are using the triple line dialer, that should be for all of our really rough data.
Yeah.
Our really niche stuff, we could just upload it into the stacker and REsimpli. And a single line dialer will work fine. There's a dude I know named McLean Bobbitt. He does a lot in like REsift. The dude has 2 people in his company and they make like 30 calls a day.
Yeah.
But they do several deals a month because they're very targeted with their data.
Yeah.
And they're just
Agreed.
going after them. And they'll call them 5 times in a row and they don't care, but they know no one else is getting a hold of them.
Right.
And so there's at the beginning, you need to be like that with your cold calling data, and then we can expand it and have like all, because at a point in time, you're going to run out of people to call. All you're going to have is high equity absentee. I don't believe in calling owner occupieds unless they're pre-foreclosures. It's just a waste of your time.
Agree. Yeah, I think that's why. And we're going to be rolling out an update in REsimpli next month where from list stacking, you can just call any number without pushing them to dial. It just basically click a button and just like click to dial immediately. Just for like I 100% agree with it. I think people focus too much on like calling these big lists, but if you stack them and get a really niche list to go after and just to call them one at a time, I think that's where you are making better connections rather than trying to call thousands of people a day. It sounds great. Hey, I have a list of 100,000 people. We're calling 1,000 people a day, but how many people are you connecting with? How many conversations are you having? I think that's where people just focus too much on the upfront stuff and not so much on like the conversions and the other metrics that they have. That's why it becomes super, super important to make sure you're having the right conversation and have the right list stacked. So Shelby, is that tied in with the regular dialer or no, it'll just be like on its own. You don't need a separate dialer. You just like when we go live, you just click a button, but just like you just start calling from it. So you won't have to create campaign. It's just simple click to dial. Just like you have in leads, similar will be coming out in list stacking also, but we'll talk about that on a future call that we have. Hey, Stratton, I want to ask you something. I know this was about VA, but how do you have like the challenge that you had going from 0 to million? I want to ask you about a little bit about your mindset behind that, because I feel like that's something investors struggle with is limiting belief on like going from 0 to 1, for example, not 1 million, it could be 100,000, it could be 50,000 for them. You've had multiple companies doing 7-figure and then you're launching this challenge. You're already like made more money than most of the investors will make in their lifetime, right? Like, how do you have that mindset to do that? Just set up a challenge to 6 months, $1 million net revenue.
Netting $1 million sounded really fun.
You're like, and you work backwards from there?
Yeah, essentially. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you can think about what you want to accomplish and then solve backwards from there, is what I've learned from one of my mentors. Not just like I can't do it, but how can I do it? So with one of our tax credit businesses, I am owed $1 million from the government. Like we are owed $1 million net from the government that we're still waiting on. And so I was like, hey, this money may never come in. So I sat down, and this was before the challenge, and I was like, God damn, we just may have lost a lot of money. And I sat down, so how can I go out and I can net $1 million in 6 months? And so I came up with this. But at the same time, you just want to like work backwards from what you can do and then ask yourself, how can I get it done? And that's what I did. And so I reached out to Sharad and I was like, Sharad, I'd love to use your CRM. I've heard great things about it. You've been supporting us. I'd love to use it. And I reached out to Lead Zolo and I just, hey, how can I make this happen for me? And then what does that need to look like? And then I didn't stop until it was done.
Nice. So top priority, all right, I'm going to do this. What needs to be true for this to happen? Like, what would it need to look like for me to get to the goal? And then let's start doing that. What are some of the challenges you've run into, like issues that you've run into?
Challenges. I mean, bro, we have challenges every day. I was just screaming at a buyer on the phone today because he wanted to use his own title company. And I was like, no, you just agreed to using our title company. All right. So there's a challenge. Sales reps. We hired on 2 sales reps who were both, honestly, they were great dudes. One dude's like, hey, I just need money right now. I can't do it. The other guy, just his second Monday at work, he decided he wanted to take it off and decided he wanted to go to like watch a cousin's state championship basketball game in the middle of the day and just not work that day. Right. That's a pain in the ass because we have 20 leads coming in a day that we need to work. So those have been problems. So getting the culture right. More problems we've been having. Yeah, we have 20 leads a day coming in, but I'd say 10 to 15 are only really feasible because some of these are, I got a lead in the heart of Alabama. I didn't even know this place existed. There has not been a real estate sale for 30 miles. I can't do anything with that. Like I could like try and novate it, but then I think it'd be on the market forever. We'd be spinning our wheels. Another issue, just the amount of transactions.
That's crazy to think about.
It's nuts. It's like it's in the hills. And I remember I looked at it and all around and there was nothing for sale. The biggest issue we've had so far, it's because I haven't done it before. I've never had this many active contracts at a time. In California, if you do like 4 deals a month, that could be a 6-figure month, right? And that's not a lot of transactions. Right now, we have 17 going at the same time,
In California or nationwide?
just nationwide.
Wow.
And so that's a lot more moving parts, getting buyers, right? Coordinating access. Because if you think about it, for every property that we do, we need to get photos. That's $100. Like it's 100 to 150 bucks. We need to get, we'll start getting inspections for every property. That's another $100. We have to send it out on investor lift. That's going to be $100 in text messages.
Right.
So that's $300. And then let's say $200 for just anything that could happen. $300 times 16, like that's quite a bit of just essentially dead capital that has to be done to get a deal sold.
That's
So
like
I'd say that was an
$5,000.
issue.
Yeah. You don't know if you're gonna be able to wholesale that or not.
Yeah, like you don't know if you're going to recoup it. And so
No.
at the beginning, my philosophy was let's get deals on the board. But then, so Kalani, my significant other, is helping out with our disposition side. It just bogged her down because I would just lock stuff up. And I was like, they want this. I think we can get it moved. Let's sell it. We couldn't sell it. Then we have to go back. It kills morale because you got to cancel the contract. Right. But then at the same time, when we go into a tight one with a seller, I'm telling them, hey, we got to get people in here to see if we could even sell it. We're not going to be the buyer. We're going to have to bring in some other investors. And we're probably like 50-50 if anything can happen.
All right, Jonathan has a question. What have you found is a sweet spot for compensation with sales? Hourly plus a certain bonus per deal close?
For Americans, I only want to go commission just because and I talked to Steve Trang about this last week. He was like, the difference of the quality of person you get with a $2,000 draw versus no draw is nominal. And so you might as well go no draw.
Like from day one.
From day one. It was like the difference of talent is honestly unnoticeable. He's like, so you shouldn't even give them a draw. Like they haven't proven to you that they even deserve a draw. But when it comes to virtual assistants, I would tell you if you pay someone
And what's your bonus structure on that? Do you pay
10%.
them 10% like regardless of how much profit there is on the deal, or you do it you have separate tiers. If you make over 25, you get this much, over 50 this much?
No, because I don't necessarily want them going swinging for the fences and blowing up a deal.
So it's 10% regardless. 10,000,
Yeah.
100,000, 10%.
It's 10%, and then if we hit our $1 million net mark, they get an additional 20 grand.
Nice. Okay. And then for your VA overseas?
For VAs overseas, if you're at that $6 an hour mark and you give them like 3 to 4%, that is a killer living.
Yeah, that's pretty good money.
Like if
they
they get
a lot
3 to
more
4% and $6, $6 is better than most people get paid in a sales role. That's in the Philippines. In South America, you may have to up it a little bit and go from like 6 probably to like 8 to 12 is what I've seen as a base pay, and then give them like 2 to 3%.
What's the best country to hire in South America?
I really like Colombia. I really like Mexico. Jamaica has been good to us. We have someone in Nicaragua right now. But Colombia and Mexico are really good, I would say. They've been my best two for like phone sales. That's like, if it's for administrative and operationally, everywhere across the world, it's easier to find operationally gifted people than it is to find people who are good on the phone.
I agree with that, yeah. All right, question. Jonathan has another question. Is Investor Lift your main source of dispo, and any challenges with the new wholesaler regulation or solutions you have found there? Yeah, there's a lot of regulations around wholesaling. Like, have you run into, I think, just South Carolina has that, and Illinois has that same thing. Like, how are you doing that? I think in Illinois, if I understand correctly, like, because we're right across the border, I don't think you can wholesale in Illinois.
We can wholesale for 3, and then after that, we can't. But I think if you are thinking about that and you aren't worried about locking up the deal, you're kind of misguided. Get the deal under contract and then find the money. Just like lock up the good deal, then go find the double closing money is my philosophy. Like it does me no good to think about a problem that doesn't exist yet. I can think about the problem when the problem exists. And so if a problem does come up, then I can just go solve for it. I can post it in Facebook and be like, hey, here's what I'm running into. What do you guys think? But to use up my bandwidth on something that doesn't exist in reality yet doesn't help me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can always double close, which if you have enough money, like money would be the easy part. I mean, if there's enough money to be made, finding money would be the easy part. If you're going to make 25, just give someone, like, if you run into it, hey, I'm going to give you 5,000, 20% of the deal, just fund
So
it. Yeah.
for Illinois, we sent out a deal on Investor Lift, and I got a text message automatically saying, "Hey, do you have someone who's going to fund your double closing? We'd love to do it. We'll do it for a point."
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so, like, the worry about the problem at hand, and then when the next problem presents itself, then solve it. Because what happens with this paralysis by analysis in any stage is you try and solve all these problems before you take your first step. Just take the step, solve for that, take the next step, solve for that. And then when something important comes up, just solve for that. Or else it gets overwhelming and you get decision fatigue and all this other stuff.
Dude, that's amazing. Yeah. Shelby said paralysis analysis is my middle name. Yeah. Right. Hector has a question. Are most of your closers American, or do you have VAs do that also?
I've had a mixture over time. Right now, I'm going to do Americans just because I know I need a certain level of skill set to get it there. And any VA, I don't want to have to go like poach VAs from someone else. And I've trained up VAs to close, but the key in that sentence is trained up people to close. I need someone who's closed before and put them in because I don't have time to ramp up for the challenge.
So is that for the challenge? But like, let's say outside of challenge, if you didn't have that 6 months, for the 0 to 1 million, would you say
I'd go with VAs.
I would go, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have our VA in Philippines, like we pay him $6 an hour, but he makes a lot more money from bonus. He makes, more than his base pay from bonus, but he's absolutely crushing it. If you have the right incentive, like just one thing I've found, at least in my experience, Stratton, you can share your experience. Like people in Philippines, at least in our experience, they're very financially driven. If you give them the right incentive, they will be just so locked in and they will just give their 110%. Is that kind of what you found? Like for us, incentive, financial incentive over anything else. Yes, of course, you need to praise them, appreciate them. But the financial incentive is the biggest driver for them.
Last year in our government tax credit company, at this month last year, we did $178,000. And the two sales reps, one girl was from the Philippines and the other guy was from Colombia. They had to gather all of the social security numbers, the EIN for the company. They had to get all of the W-2s from that company. They had to gather tons of different financial information, and they did it from across the world.
You're giving them a percentage of the revenue generated.
And then we'd give them 3 points off of the revenue generated. So off that revenue generated, we'd pay out 3 points to whoever it was.
Wow, amazing money for them.
It's amazing money for them. And that was a harder sale than a wholesale deal. I just wanted to use that as an example to where you can hire on people 100% who could do it. We had the ramp up time for them. We started them off as cold callers, then we got them into an next role, and then we brought them up to speed.
Jonathan said the marketing is the issue. Jonathan, you want to expand on that? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, I know we were having this discussion about like wholesaling in different markets where it's becoming a little bit of a challenge outside of like Illinois, South Carolina. I think someone mentioned Oklahoma, and in Texas, we have to disclose. Yeah, but like double close is kind of what I hear people are doing if you want to wholesale. So that's an easy solution. And the money is available. If you find the right deal, money is not an issue at that point.
Yeah. And in all of our agreements, we disclose that we can list it on the MLS and market it preemptively. And then we have in our agreement that we can assign the contract.
You get any pushback on that, especially on the listing on the MLS side? They're like, hey, I can just do it myself. Why do I need you guys?
No, because if it's something that's like kind of like iffy, I'll just tell them right then and there that like, hey, we're gonna list this on the MLS,
right.
And if there's needs to be repairs, we'll make the repairs ourselves, just like a novation.
Right.
But generally, we're not gonna list it on the MLS. We'll put it in all our Facebook groups and everything else, and then go from there.
All right. Jonathan has a question. Curious about what is the success for a VA to have earned that 3%? Are they handling of qualified leads to your American sales rep, or actually making offers, and how do they know what to offer? Like, how do they become eligible for the 3%?
I mean, if they're a closer, they're eligible for the 3%. If they're a leads manager, all we've ever done is just a flat fee. Like they get like $100 if a deal closes that they worked.
If the deal closes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
Okay.
for your sales reps, if they're at $6 an hour and 3%, I mean, they should be doing everything that an acquisitions rep does, and they get held accountable according to it, right? So like, hey, here's the amount of calls we expect you to make every day. Here's the amount of offers you should have out this week. Hey, what's your pipeline looking like? All that would be the same.
Okay.
With the leads manager, you could just have them be doing pass offs, but that I would just see it as two different roles, not as like two different, one in America, one not in America.
Yeah, it's just based on role. Lead manager, acquisition manager. I agree. All right. Jason has a question. It says I'm also curious about doing this nationwide marketing. What have you found out is your best lead source?
Right now we use LeadZillow.
Yeah.
GetLeadZillow.com is our lead source, and that's all PPL. And the reason I chose to do that, cold calling works, but cold calling has like a 6 month to a year turnaround time. Because it's interruption marketing and it's not actively coming into you. And so you have to nurture those leads a lot more, to where with inbound marketing, it goes by a lot faster, because mail is a good form of inbound marketing, but mail takes like a year to break even with, typically. Cold calling takes 6 months to a year to make any money with. PPC, PPL, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, that all has the fastest like cash conversion cycle, but it just costs more.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like with PPL, it's something you can turn on or off at any time. And you're getting, especially given the environment that we're in right now with SMS regulation and, even the calling is getting a little bit more regulated. If you can have people call you in from, your PPC, PPL, TV, radio, those are going to be more motivated than any other lead structure any other lead channel that you have outbound. And for anyone that's curious, I'm sharing, this is the bonus structure I have with my team member for the deals that we're closing. So if you guys are curious kind of what we're doing, he's super motivated with it. And it's based on the more money we make, the more money he's making. And because we fix and flip, we make minimum 30, 35,000 in each given deal, just to give you guys an idea. Some deals will make a lot more. So the more we make, the more money he's making also. Joe has a question. Do you feel like PPL leads are a viable option for larger market from a cost perspective? For example, like Miami or other California market?
My friend Willie Numbers is down in like Florida, and I think right now it costs him $9,000 to do a deal, but he'll make on average 70,000. And I would make that trade-off every day.
I was going to say, yeah, you're 100% thinking about it the right way, like not cost per lead or cost per deal, but how much money are you making, ROI?
Yeah, I just look at like a return on my investment. And so the reason we started that government tax credit business, because we were doing our wholesaling marketing, cold calling, and we were testing out this government tax credit market. We got a 60x return on our cold calling for that government tax credit business. And so to me, I was like, it makes zero sense to continue cold calling for our wholesaling stuff. We should go to this other company that we can get a better return on. You should look at your marketing channels no different, right? So at the end of the day, I'm looking at it like, okay, I have my PPC, I have my PPL, I have my mail, I have my cold calling. And then you could even break down your PPL into these other little families. And I can look at it like, oh, this one gave me a 3x. That's the lowest I would ever go, right? This one gave me a 3x. This one was a 5x. Oh, wow. TV's giving us a 9x. What's going on there? What are we doing different? Right? And then I would funnel more money into the thing that's giving us the best return. Because we're still investors. We're just investing into our business, right? So we have to know the metrics that we need in order to make the business grow, and so we can get better returns over time.
Any direct mail? Jason asked that question.
No.
Is that
You can do direct
because
mail. I'm not against it. I'm just not using it because I know how long it takes to turn around.
yeah, direct mail, generally what we found, investors that are like doing high volume, they're doing direct mail, but it has a ramp up period. It's going to take you like 3 to 6 months before we start seeing results. You may get lucky with the first list, but generally it takes a longer time period. Like for time crunch, PPC, PPL, inbound leads, they generally tend to be more motivated. Which hires first? Jonathan, can you expand on that a little bit?
If you're just talking about what should be your first hire, I would say you'd want someone who's like an admin or operational. And depending on what your skill set is.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself, Jonathan, if you want.
This book right here, Unique Ability 2.0, is one of the best books I've ever read.
What's the
Because
book about?
Unique Ability 2.0. It's like a workshop and a book. It's by Dan Sullivan, like the best business coach in the
Oh
world.
man. Yeah, he's amazing.
And it goes into analyzing what your unique ability is. And so you just stay operating in that, and everything else is done by someone else. And so I know for me, my job, I'm a really good marketer and I'm a really good salesman. And so I should only be focusing on those things. Everything else needs to be outsourced. You will not catch me doing some operational task. I'm not good at it. It's not where my unique ability is. It feels heavy. I know Trevor Mock has like his energy audit stuff, and he kind of got it from Dan Sullivan. Unique Ability 2.0, if you can read that and you do the whole book and you can find out what your unique ability is, hire out everything else that isn't that. For most of you guys, as the entrepreneurs, we're generally the face, the salesman, the marketer, the visionary. So we should stick with what we're good at and what we like, which is the sales. That back end operational stuff should be taken off your plate first,
Great.
because
Yeah.
we control the money.
Right. Hector has a question on leads solo. Are you able to give them a price point, or do they just focus on zip code or county? You're
County.
doing nationwide.
I'm doing nationwide, but they go county, and I have to go nationwide because I have a split with them, and they're like, hey, you can get the scraps. Essentially, we'll give our really good clients the good stuff
Okay.
because we have a JV with them.
But yeah, I
they
mean, I
do it
believe
by
all
county.
the PPL they do at the county level, right? I don't know of anyone that does at the zip code or city level,
I feel like that'd be too much effort
right? Yeah.
on their end.
Cool. All right. Last question. What's your ROI on lead solo leads? And what's your monthly spend with them?
ROI is 5x right now. We haven't closed anything yet, but we have about 5x in the pipeline.
Okay. Yeah, that's what kind of I would expect, 4 to 5x on the PPL, PPC stuff, or higher. Yeah.
I want it to be higher, and that will go into like doing more novations. If we wanted to do flips, we could, but then a flip's going to take us 3 to 6 months to
Right.
finish anyways, and so it's not worth it. And so there's other ways to increase that, and the way we'll increase that is honestly just by novations.
Then otherwise, if you do flips, naturally your ROI would be higher, but then it's a longer time cycle for you. Then you need more cash. All right. Matt has what is the federal tax credit real estate marketing messaging? Is that surplus recovery? I'm not sure what
Yeah,
that
it
is.
was ERC stuff, Matt.
Okay.
We were doing a bunch of ERC stuff, but it wasn't associated with our real estate company at all. The big thing that I wanted to use was we used all virtual assistants for that company. And then I wanted to use, like, we have metrics down to the dial of how much we would make per dial per person.
Talk
Just
about
so we
tracking
could track
KPIs.
things. Yeah, just like to have really, really good KPIs, because, and it's no different, guys. We are a sales and marketing company. We are not a real estate company. So we want to know exactly where our money's going, how long it takes us. I love REsimpli because it tells you, hey, this lead has been open for 20 hours. Who's fucking up here? Right? Because every minute, I guarantee you that lead doesn't get touched, that is money out the door.
Yeah.
And so knowing all that data, all those statistics has been amazing.
Stratton, I love that you said real estate investing, this is sales and marketing business. It just it is really a marketing, and sales business. Like if you're not good at that, might as well not be in the business. Yeah, 100% agree. Cool. Any final message, Stratton, on what you notice investors struggle with?
If you guys are struggling hiring people, I do own a company called Virtual Help, where we help real estate investors get great virtual assistants from around the world into their company. And the number one issues they usually fall into is they don't have a good set of core values set up for their company, and they don't have an actual job description set up and know what that person's going to go in and do, and not being very clear on that. And so I'd tell you that would be an issue. If you guys are interested in that, you guys can go to virtualhelp.io. And then what system we use to coordinate all of our closings? We use Easy REI Closings to coordinate all of that. And then our sales admin helps with that. And they handle all of our transaction coordination, because I wouldn't be able to handle all that. And again, that goes to like my unique ability thing. I knew my personality type and how bogged down I'd get with managing that amount of transactions. And so I knew I had to go find someone who can handle it for us.
So that easy closing, that's basically a transaction management service that they provide, right? Nationwide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
With David Olds.
It is with David. Let me get the link. Here we go. Which one is it? And they're awesome because number one, I don't know title companies across the United States. That was been a big thing for us. Where if I'm going to do a random deal in Arkansas, that's really tough.
So they manage all of that. They, whether escrow company, title company, attorneys, whatever it is, then they would handle all of that.
Yep. And it's
Perfect.
just geteasyclosings.com is the
Get
link for
easy.
that.
It's easy.
And it doesn't cost us any money. We pay them out $750 a transaction and the buyer pays the fee.
Yeah. That's what I've heard many investors do. It just add that on to the assignment contract or the purchase agreement. Cool.
And then it makes it a lot easier for us.
Awesome. Stratton, thank you so much, man. I know how busy you are, so I really, really appreciate you taking time and coming on the call. Thank you so much.
Of course. I appreciate all your support. REsimpli is the best system out here.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. See you guys on the next week call. Thanks.